Fran was a weak slave who dreamed of growing strong so she could one day live free. However, her life takes a dramatic turn when she discovers a talking sword that trains her to become overpowered so she could unalive all of her enemies. It all started when a broke bum suddenly got obliterated by Truck Kun and turned into roadkill. He suddenly woke up as a legendary sword penetrated into the ground. God spoke to him and told him to do his best because it'll be a rough journey, then disappeared. He realizes being isekai'd meant he would have broken magical powers. He opens up a menu and notices he was an intelligent weapon. His skills were self-repair, telekinesis, telepathy, and many more paid to win abilities. Suddenly, a group of vile vermin came and tried to pull him out. They beat on him and spat on him until he finally lost it.
That's disgusting.
He used telekinesis to fly up, then impale one through the chest. He flew through the air, slicing them all down and cutting through their mana crystals. After, he notices some new things popping up on his stats and saw that he had collected 3 mana crystals, then a skill bank containing the skills the goblins had. It was then he realized he could absorb skills from monsters after destroying their crystals. He dug the homeless bums a grave, then inserted himself back into his hole. He notices he was quite lonely being a sword without someone to wield him. His one and only goal now was simple: absorb as many skills and be as strong as possible for someone to wield one day. Meanwhile, Fran gazes up at the moon, hoping to grow stronger one day as her slave owner tosses a rock at her head, demanding that she get back to work. She looks up at the sky and claims she wanted to grow strong so she could one day live free. Over the next few days, he realizes telekinesis uses up MP and can be used for 3 minutes. He suddenly gets trapped while hunting and notices it was draining his MP. He escaped and immediately penetrated its defenses and stole its skill. He gained a mana drain and a skill called Float. Utilizing Float allowed him to fly 5 times longer. One day, he stumbled upon a pack of disgusting goblins and followed them to their nest. He dove straight in and massacred them instantly like a deranged lunatic.
Damn.
At the center of the nest, he saw a goblin king, then catapulted himself and busted a fat one through his head. He spotted the goblin mage and targeted him next. After, he acquired fire magic and many more. Meanwhile, Fran saw her friend getting beat up and ran in front to protect her. He told her to kneel, and her collar shocked her to the ground. The next morning, the man tormented her, calling her species weak and unable to evolve. Fran picked up a rock and charged him, but the collar shocked her to the ground again. The owner told her she would always be a slave as he stomped on her face. The legendary Excalibur discovered the farther he went from his pedestal, the stronger the monsters became. The strong monsters had incredibly powerful mana crystals, so he wanted them all. A dragon suddenly appeared and challenged him, but he butchered it like a Wagyu steak and broke. However, his self-repair skill began regenerating himself. After killing and absorbing so many monsters, he became strong enough to combat monsters in Area 4. Next, he took on the southern boss of Area 5, a giant Rimuru. He catapulted himself and penetrated its magic crystal and obliterated it. After the battle, he acquired 30 evolution points. He gained instant regeneration and pocket dimension. Over the next following days, he hunted down the eastern boss, the Doppel Snake, and the western boss, the Blast Tortoise, the northern boss, the Tyrant Sabertooth. He dug himself into the ground to take a short break, but when he tried to fly out, telekinesis stopped working. He tried a few other skills, but nothing activated. He then realizes the ground was absorbing the mana every time he used a skill. Days went by, and he began fantasizing about an elf baddie that would come and wield him, gripping his legendary handle. A month went by, and he was begging for even a goblin to come and pull him out. Suddenly, a storm cloud came over and began pouring all over him as he leveled up his skills out of desperation. He started to lose hope, wondering if he was cursed to never be gripped on. Elsewhere, a twin-headed abomination flipped over the carriage carrying Fran and the other slaves. It began slaughtering everyone as Fran watched, frozen in fear. The bear unalived one of the owners, and her collar deactivated. However, one of the other slaves pushed her over. Out of desperation, Fran picked up a wooden stick and confronted the monster, but it tossed her aside like an unwanted orphan child.
No! No! No!
She thought she was going to die until suddenly she heard a voice telling her to use him. She looked over and saw King Arthur's legendary Excalibur. When she grabbed onto its handle, she heard a voice saying, "It'll make her strong." He realizes he could use telepathy if someone was touching his hilt. Fran struggled, pulling him out, but got him out at the last second. After equipping him, she immediately learned all of his skills and was amazed. Fran charged straight into battle, moving gracefully as if she was already a master swordsman. She dove in and stabbed it through its neck and killed it without mercy. After the battle, the remaining owner demanded that she hand over the sword, then began beating on her. He held up her contract and demanded obedience, but the master snapped his neck with telekinesis and burned the contract. Fran held him and thanked him for giving her freedom. The master backed away and asked if she would be willing to be his wielder, and Fran immediately accepted. She held him up and told him she wanted to grow stronger. He asked why, and she explained no black cat has ever evolved. Evolution was a dream her parents weren't able to fulfill. The master thought that was commendable, then declared he would train her to help her achieve that dream. He asked her what her name was, and she thought of her parents, then told him it was Fran. Fran asked for his name, but unfortunately, God didn't give him one. He asked her to give him one since she was his wielder, and she thought about it, then named him Master. Fran suddenly hears a disturbance and begins running over. The master asks her what is wrong, but she doesn't answer. A group is being attacked by goblins, but Fran swoops in and slices them in half. The master uses an aura blade to kill the goblins trying to penetrate her from behind. He tells her it was a skill that spawns a mana blade that doesn't require her to hold him. He then tells Fran to hide the fact that he can speak. As thanks for saving their pathetic caravan, Randall offers her a ride to a nearby town called Alessa. Randall explains there had been much activity in the Demon Wolf's Garden, an A-rank monster area east of their location. Apparently, there was a turf war, and it forced all of the weaker monsters like goblins to flee to the human areas. The master soon realizes all of the monsters fleeing were due to his slaughtering rampage. Fran asks if he knew about a sword that sat at the center of the hunting grounds, which excites the master, but he had no idea. However, he compliments her on her sword skills, while the juiceman merchant is disgusted with her. He thought a measly black cat becoming an adventurer is unheard of, but when she looks over, he turns away in fear. They arrive at the town, and she walks around amazed at the sights, while two worthless peasants walk by and mock her for holding a sword. As they walk through town, the master notices the swords around all have higher attack stats than him. Fran overhears his pitiful sulking and tells him he will always be the most beautiful sword to her, then rizzes him up by complimenting his unique and awesome skills. He thought she was a sweetheart, then realizes no other sword can support their wielder with skills like him. Inside the guild, a group of lowly peasants thought the receptionist shorted them on their payment for monsters, while she hoped that one day she would walk in and they were all dead on the floor. Fran approaches and asks to register as an adventurer. Nell notices she was just a child and explains to be an adventurer, she has to fight and defeat their test examiner. However, Fran immediately agrees to the trial. Nell thought it was unfortunate and thought it was better for her to learn here than to die in battle. Nell leads her into the exam room, and Donadrand introduces himself as Alessa's test examiner while emanating his massive meat aura. Fran thought it was unnecessary while Nell began leaking. She notices Fran was unfazed and is surprised. The master inspects him and notices he is packing some powerful stats. Donadrand rushes in, but Fran dodges quite easily. They exchange blows with their weapons, but Donadrand blows her back. However, he is impressed with her movements and evasion skills. The master grants her an attack and agility boost. They exchange blades once more, and she lands a blow, but he regenerates instantly. She dives in and demands to be an adventurer, then the master trapped him with earth magic and surrounds him with fire spells and obliterates him. Nell notices she casted chain spells without chanting and had high-level fire magic as well. Fran charges in with her charged-up Dragon Fang and sends Donadrand through the wall. Nell thought what she did was impossible even for high-level adventurers. Fran asks if she passes, and the half-dead Donadrand gives her a thumbs up. Klimt, the guildmaster, was informed that she was able to use intermediate sword arts and level 10 fire magic without chanting, then asks who taught her. But Fran suddenly declares she wasn't a snitch. The master had told her to keep their relationship a secret since it can be used against them. Klimt uses his Diddy powers to try to inspect her, but she has identity protection from scammers. Klimt mentions her secrecy bothers him. However, the spirits are calm around her. He explains spirits are sensitive to negative emotions and malicious thoughts. Through them, he could tell she wasn't harboring any ill intentions. They took her to record her magic signature for her guild card. Fran places her hand on the crystal, and the classes she was compatible with were endless. She picks Spell Sword, since it boosts attack and magic power. When Nell hands her the guild card, Fran excitedly shows off her first achievement.
Nice.
Moments later, Fran goes to the front to sell the monster materials she collected. Utilizing pocket dimension, she pulls out an enormous amount of high-level monsters. All of the peasants stare in jealousy as Nell assesses them all. She hands Fran a bag of gold and compliments her on the meticulously carved monsters and explains that was why she got paid so much. Fran then thanks her as big sister, then walks off. As she is leaving, the lowly peasants send a couple daggers at her feet. The master tells her to ignore them and continue on. However, they get in her face and pull out their weapons, demanding to know if she was deaf. The rodent claims she didn't rightfully earn that money, and the peasants behind her thought she smelled like trash. He claims she is just another filthy black cat. The master then realizes the people of this world discriminate heavily on the black cat tribe. They claim to have sold the same monsters and didn't get paid the same amount. However, Nell smashes his head in with a whiskey bottle and claims the monsters they presented were awfully harvested. That was why they got paid in bronze coins, prompting her to tell them to go die in a hole. He tries to strike her down, but Fran shields her from harm. The man then claims he would carve her up and sell her, but no one would want a lowly black cat for a slave. However, that struck a nerve, and she uses Aura Blade to cut off his feet. They surround her, but she knocks them all out using oscillation, causing internal bleeding. Everyone began cheering her on, and Nell claims she will bill them for the mess, and they wouldn't get healed until it was paid off. Fran thanked Nell and went off to find an inn for the night. Meanwhile, a struggling alcoholic dwarf notices the intelligent weapon on Fran's back. Fran walks through town looking for armor and is amazed at all the different things she had never seen before. Suddenly, Garrus approaches her and tells her if she is looking for armor, she was looking at the wrong shops. The master inspects him and notices he is the honorary blacksmith of Granzel. Fran mentions his title and he is shocked that she had the inspect skill. Garrus provides her with the necessary gear to stay protected, and the master thought the stats on them were incredible. Fran celebrates her new drip with mellow excitement. She then asks about swords, but Garrus thought she had a fine blade already, then claimed it to be intelligent. Fran immediately takes a step away and asks how he knew. Garrus giggles and tells them it was his disgusting pink eye, the god sight. Not even identity protection can hide from this peeping Tom, a professional ditty.
What do you mean by that?
He claims his creations don't hold a candle compared to her sword. Master suddenly disagrees, but Fran tells him to shut up. Apparently, Garrus somehow heard the telepathy and asked if he was ready to talk. Fran suggests opening up since she doesn't think he was an evil ditty. Master then points out his blades have way higher attack stats than he does. Garrus realizes they are ignorant about mana conductivity. Master notices he has an A rank under MC in his stats, but didn't realize it was for mana conductivity. Garrus tells her to pull out her sword for a demonstration. The sword he is holding has an attack value of 450 and tells her to charge up her sword with 100 MP and cut it. She does and slices through it like butter. He explains his MC is ranked at A, which is 200% mana efficiency. If she charges up 100 MP, his attack increases by 200. Garrus claims he wouldn't have a problem charging up 1000 MP at once. Fran turns to him and reassures him he is no ordinary sword, then hugs him. Garrus asks if he knew who forged him and if they gave him a name, but unfortunately, his memories only go back a few months. He asks if his god sight shows any information, but a weapon housing a soul was beyond his skills. Garrus claims he must have been forged by a divine blacksmith. Master asks if he was a divine sword, but Garrus thought he wasn't strong enough. He pales in comparison to the flame sword Ignis. Master thanks him for the info and requests a scabbard since he was riding bear on Fran's back. After agreeing, the master then unloads a bunch of D and C rank monsters on him to use in his crafting. The sight of them makes his miniature water gun explode. Garrus then declares he would pour his heart and soul into crafting them some new gear. The scabbard takes 3 days, and a new set of armor takes a month. Next, they stop by a crummy store to purchase Fran some new drip, since she had been living like a homeless. They arrive at an inn, and Fran cheers to be able to finally sleep in a bed. She jumps on the bed and thanks him for everything he had done for her, then hugs him. Master tells her this was just the beginning, and she will never have to worry about being a homeless bum again. As she embraces him, he begins to think the reason he was reincarnated is to help and save Fran's life. For some apparent reason, he has a cooking skill and uses it to cook Fran a nourishing amount of Kentucky Fried Chicken. She took a bite and thought it tasted delightful, then devoured the whole plate and sat satisfied. After dinner, the master wanted to spend his evolution points with her input and asked. Fran suggests healing magic and notes when she fought Donadrond. She thought his healing skills seemed really useful. The master agrees and suggests at their level to stay away from strong enemies. While he was yapping away, Fran began falling asleep. He notices Fran mumbling about getting stronger together, then pulls the blanket over and tucks her in. The following day, Fran takes on G-rank quests to collect medicinal herbs for the guild. Utilizing his harvesting and herbology skills, the gathering quests were simple and easy. She suddenly hears blades clashing and runs over to check it out. They come across a group of peasants being surrounded by goblins. She notices a hobgoblin and jumps off the cliff to help. She stands in between them and activates her stone arrow ability, spraying them all over the boulders like unwanted children.
What?
She dives in and slaughters them with the master, shooting them down with the stone arrows and obliterates their whole squad.
Damn!
While the weak peasants watch in shock, Fran approaches them, then heals them with her magic. The priest notices she used a level 7 healing spell, and they ask who she was. She tells them she is Fran, a G rank, which is the same rank as them. Fran tells them she will harvest the hobgoblin, and they can take the rest. However, when they notice they were all hobs, they realize a goblin stampede was coming. Fran asks what it was, and they explain if there was a group of hobgoblins, that meant there is a goblin king close by. A pack led by a king is a D rank threat. If they begin reproducing at rapid speeds, a queen will emerge. Offspring between a king and queen are all hobgoblins and can form legions if they are not stopped. Suddenly, a survivor blows a warning signal, but Fran unalives it immediately. She tells them to return and notify the guild while she goes and confronts them. Master asks if she was sure, and Fran claims she wants to train for the meantime. Thanks to Garrus's armor, she takes little damage from the goblins' attacks and begins roaming the forest, hunting them down one by one and annihilating their forces. They begin coordinating their attacks and pushing her back. Master suggests retreating, but Fran refuses to run away as she continues to slaughter them all. During the battle, the master realizes he might have been lacking determination as he watches Fran decimate the goblin army. He notices he always tried to shield her from danger, but what he failed to see is that she refuses to rely on borrowed power. What she wants is to be able to endure and overcome any and all enemies. He tells her to focus on the enemies in front, and he will watch her back. As she fights the goblins off with a fiery passion, he realizes she was not a frail little kitten anymore, and she has truly grown powerful. After absorbing all of the mana crystals from the Mountain of Corpses, the adventurers from before came back with a survey team. They all glaze her abilities for bodying so many goblins, then she notifies them the nest is right up ahead. The alcoholic dwarf notes that the cave was not there a month before, and mentions it must be a dungeon. They tell her the guildmaster requested her report, and that they will stay and watch the area. When she gets back, Donadron demands to know how many hobgoblins she encountered, but Klimt tells him to calm down. Fran notifies them it was about 130 goblins, and 20 were hobs. They ask if they tried to retreat at any point, but she tells them they kept fighting to the very end. Klimt thought that was a big problem. If they are not retreating, that means there wasn't room left in the nest. It must be entirely made up of their strongest abominations. She tells them the dwarf on the scene told her it was not an ordinary nest, but a dungeon. Klimt gets up and declares they have to send a raid team immediately. He requested Fran be a part of this team and promoted her to F rank. He stated Donadrond is currently their strongest fighter at C rank, which was pretty pathetic. They arrive back at Garrus's shop all battered up, and he asks what they had been fighting. She tells him they slaughtered over 100 goblins, and that left him speechless. The master requested that he do some maintenance on Fran's gear and explained that a horde was coming. Impressed with her promotion, he sets up a magic circle to repair her armor with repair magic. Garrus explains he can charge up mana crystals with MP and use it as a catalyst for repairs since he is a lazy degenerate. Fran asks him what dungeons are, and he explains they are trials to test mankind created by the god of chaos. The dungeon's core spawns out of thin air, and whatever creature is closest to it becomes its dungeon master. It is bestowed knowledge and wisdom and uses the core to create mazes for adventurers. Older dungeons often contain precious treasures and enchanted weaponry and are home to ancient monsters. They are challenges for humanity and reward the bravest and strongest warriors. After Fran puts on her armor, Garrus tells them to stop by before the dungeon raid for their new scabbard. Fran takes him into the bathhouse so she can wash all of the goblin blood off of him. He thought that cats hated water and asked if she likes baths, but in response, she says she loves it. As she is washing his disgusting back, Nell declares she should be ashamed of bringing a murder weapon into the bathhouse. Afterwards, Nell treats her to dinner as she gets wasted on the guild's budget. She asks that she take it easy and not to push herself too hard during the dungeon raid. She thought it was despicable that the lieutenant of the Knights Brigade refused to send the Alessa Knights to help with the goblins since he hated adventurers. She stood up and wished he went and died in a ditch, while the master thought she needed therapy. Nell hopes that Amanda returns soon, and Fran thought she sounded familiar. Nell explains she is Alessa's A-rank adventurer, the protector of children. However, she and the other high-ranked adventurers set off to investigate the Demon Wolf's garden, caused by the master's insane rampage. Fran suddenly asks what the god of chaos is like, and Nell explains the goddess of chaos spreads calamity and chaos through the world. Through chaos, she pushes man forward, preventing the world from growing stagnant. The master realizes it is a woman creating this insanity they call trials. All of the information suddenly fries Fran's brain, and she goes to her room to sleep. The following morning, they arrive at the old man's place to pick up their scabbard. Garrus presents the masterpiece, and the master inserts the tip in first, then the rest smoothly. He immediately compliments him on the fine craftsmanship. Garrus sent them off and wished them luck on their mission. Everyone gathered at the dungeon's entrance, and Donadrand announces their first goal is to stop the stampede and assassinate the king and queen. Second is to investigate and conquer the dungeon by assassinating the dungeon master. Suddenly, goblins begin pouring out and murder the guard in front. Fran runs to the front of the line, but the goblins avoid her due to her title, Goblin Slayer. She was to them what this savage was to the allied shinobi forces. The master suggests leaving the mana crystals alone for now, so no one questions them about it. Fran uses air jump, a skill the master acquired from the saber-tooth. The dwarf noticed it was a skill exclusive to high-tier warriors only. She dives in and uses a tri-explosion, shocking all of the weak and pathetic peasants. She sent a sonic wave toward the entrance, but they were still gathering. The master activates advanced fire magic called Blaze Magic, and they obliterate the goblins, clearing a path.
Damn!
While Donadrand and the dwarf begin glazing her talent. The master suggests diving into the dungeon while the others are busy. Donadrand calls out to Fran, but she ignores him, while the master claims all of the mana crystals were theirs. Meanwhile, the dungeon master has summoned a demon monstrosity to command his goblin legion. Fran rushes straight in, while the others follow behind her dealing with the scraps. The master tells her to prioritize the goblins with useful skills, and the others can either be killed or left to the others. They then slip the bodies with the stolen crystals into the pocket dimension to avoid interrogation later. Fran leaps through them quickly, killing the ones with useful crystals and avoiding the useless ones. He notices Fran was getting good at pinpointing the mana crystals and compliments her talent. His praise makes her happy as she dances around the filthy goblins and slaughters them. She arrives at another wave, and the master notices they didn't have any useful crystals, then uses Split Mind and activates 2 fire javelins, then roasts them like the diabolical creatures they were.
Yeah, boy.
He remembers that Fran had an issue using Split Mind, but he has no issues, since he is brainless. They go down a floor, and Fran inserts him into the ground. He senses 2 hobgoblins ahead, and when they confront them, they run away due to her Goblin Slayer title. However, they lead her straight to the center of the nest. Meanwhile, Donadrand was making light work of the filthy creatures. They noticed there weren't that many bodies for a stampede and asked Donadrand who that black cat was. In response, he tells them he has no idea, but her sword art and mastery was already level 7. Fran jumps down and sees the disgusting abominations they call their king and queen. The master suggests activating high-level spells and taking out the hobgoblins first. While they are distracted, he instructs her to jump in and assassinate the married couple. He activates Split Thinking and Flare Blast, then fires straight at them, showing absolutely no mercy at all, then sends fire javelins to clean up the rest.
Damn!
Fran dives in, ready for 2 more bodies. However, they were already burnt to a crisp like your mother's attempt at a Texas barbecue. He immediately compliments Fran on her good looks today, but Fran calls him an idiot and a kill stealer while tearing up. He suggests having fun killing off the rest, but they all retreat like cowards. As they walk around, Fran asks if they are done with the quest now, but they suddenly encounter a boss room. They casually walk in, as Fran realizes she can still have fun killing the final boss. The door suddenly closes behind them, prompting him to tell her to stay alert. Lights lit up the room, revealing a swarm of bugs. He notices they were extremely weak. The dynamic duo decides to farm while they can, so he stops the bugs utilizing telekinesis while she slashes away at them. After half an hour, Fran begins feeling fatigue. The master realizes they were being summoned, then spots the army beetle leader. He then activates level 10 magic and obliterates all of them, while Fran jumps up and cuts down the leader. After all of the crystals were collected, Fran jumps from level 12 to 17. However, they spotted another door. As they approach, they feel a powerful and ominous aura. The master boosts her status ailment resistance, reflexes and senses, physical attributes, and regeneration abilities. He absorbed plenty of MP from the beetles, so he was good to go. He then announces that when they get back with a W, he will make her a specialty dish called curry, which lights a spark of determination in her eyes to kill the dungeon boss at all cost. Fran holds him close and promises she wouldn't die. Meanwhile, Donadron and the others get to the first door and are frustrated they can't get in. They go inside and are greeted by a greater demon. He realizes they are chopped and screwed when he sees his stats and special skill. He notes that Randall mentions greater demons are B-rank threats and are capable of leveling whole countries. He mocks her for not looking strong, but then realizes she made it to the deepest part of the dungeon. Suddenly, a disgusting pest orders the demon to hurry up and finish her off. Master inspects him and realizes the weakling is the dungeon boss and the sphere beside him was the core. Master imbues himself with 500 MP, then blocks the demon's first attack. He compliments her sword, claiming not many can stand up to his. Their blades collide once more, and just as he compliments her sword skills, she uses an aura blade, then shoots his blade out of his hand. However, the sword teleports back, and he deflects her next attack. Suddenly, he disappears into the darkness, then reappears behind her and slashes off her hands. He goes in for the kill, but the master puts up a firewall. He quickly reattaches her hands, then uses magic to heal them. He then tells her to take deep breaths while the demon notices and praises her regeneration abilities. He attempts it again, but this time, the master warns her and she easily blocks every single attack. While they fight it out, the master begins thinking of what his skill could be since teleportation was not listed, then realizes he was hiding in her shadow like Diddy.
What do you mean by that?
Fran jumps up and dodges, then chained Vibrofang and Malevolent Poison Fang and sends the attack. But he immediately uses his Dusk magic and shoots a Sero Blast at her. He is surprised she was able to poison him through his status resistance. Fran notices the poison wasn't doing much, then asks the master what to do. However, determined to eat delicious curry, she lunges into battle again and makes swift exchanges with the demon once more. He commends her on having higher sword mastery than him, then uses his ability Skill Taker and impales her through the chest.
No! No! No!
With an invisible hand. He claims to have stolen her sword mastery, her only way of fighting him. Fran crosses blades with him once more, which surprises him. She says she can still fight fine, and the master states he wasn't able to steal it since it was a shared skill. The dungeon master notices he is in trouble, then taunts him by preparing to summon more goblins to assist him. However, the demon obliterates the goblins himself and tells him to stay out of his way. He grows out his antennas, then activates his strongest magic, sending tremors throughout the dungeon. Donadron panics and tries to break down the door again, but it has no effect. He notices she survived. However, Fran can barely stand after that attack. Master suggests retreating utilizing the escape feather, but Fran thought if he wasn't put down now, he would destroy Alessa and all of their new friends. In pursuit of her evolution, Fran became stronger. He realizes as her master, he shouldn't be holding her back. She continues to dodge all of the attacks while he thinks up a plan. The demon grows impatient while the goblin fears for his life. He begins taking down the entire dungeon, but the master notices he had been deliberately avoiding the dungeon master. He wonders if he was just a tsundere, then sends a fire javelin at him, causing the demon to immediately stop and run to Daddy. Fran understands the assignment, then unloads all of their MP into fire javelins and sends an assault of fire magic at them. The demon puts up a barrier to protect them both. Master realizes they would run out of MP before he dies, then instructs Fran to stop the magic, dive in, and exhaust his magical power. After using high-level magic, there was a 3-second gap before he fully recharges his mana. Then Fran tosses the Master straight at the Dungeon Master and activates Fire Javelin again, but the demon sees through it. However, the Master changes trajectory and goes straight for the demon's mana crystal, but he stops it. The Master uses his mana to enforce the penetration, then speaks to the greater demon. He demands retribution for hurting his precious little Fran, then unleashes the rest of his mana and obliterates his mana crystal, sending him into the void. He falls to the ground and begins shattering. Fran sees the horror and runs over. She begins crying as she holds him, but he suddenly climaxes from the sensation of eating the mana crystal. He tells her not to assume he was dead next time and explains he can restore his mana by absorbing mana crystals. He uses MP to self-regenerate so he was able to take on physical damage, then apologizes for making her worry. Fran then hugs him and says he was amazing. The Dungeon Master is astonished that a greater demon is defeated by a little girl and thinks he was pathetic. He begins summoning another demon. However, Fran picks up the demon's sword and slashes his magic staff. He claims to have a bracelet to revive him even if she kills him, but she cuts his hand off next as the Master robs him of the rare bracelet.
Gotcha!
She gets ready to behead him, but the Master tells her he was already dead. The dungeon core then explodes as the dungeon is cleared. Fran then celebrates with a mellow excitement once again. Donadrond and the useless crew finally arrive and ask if she is okay. Fran greets everyone, and they all notice the abomination laying there and realizes it was a greater demon corpse. They looked at Fran, and she said she killed it. Donadrond pats her on the head and tells her not to make him worry next time, as she calls him Donato with an adorable smile. He then grips her head and reminds her the 10 rules of adventuring once again. On the way back, Master notifies her that she is now level 25. He then asks her what skills she wants to learn with his new evolution points. However, Fran is furious that he was thinking about new skills while she was being scolded. Master brings up the curry as a distraction, and Fran immediately forgives him. She asks what kind of food curry was, and he explains it is a stew made with vegetables and spices, served over rice. He suggests adding meat to make it a luxury meal, which causes the exhausted Fran to drool. Donato looks back and sees a deranged lunatic frolicking around after catching so many bodies. The Master asks what skills she wanted to level up, and she suggests sword arts and mastery. The Master thought so as well, since magic would not be as effective against stronger enemies. After leveling up both swordsmanship and sword arts, they acquire sword saint arts and elemental sword. Elemental sword allows her to enchant her sword with magic temporarily, and all she can think of is Master cloaked in flames. Fran suggests learning Skill Taker since it could be useful in the future, since they will be able to steal skills from humans without having to murder them, which Fran thought was awesome. They level it up to level 10 immediately and gain 100% chance of robbing a skill from a target. Fran suggests taking a skill from Donato, but the Master thought that was diabolical. Fran reports to the Guildmaster when she gets back, and he expresses his gratitude for clearing the dungeon and defeating the greater demon. Without her, they would have all become the demon's slaves. He thanks her for handing over the demon's corpse, but questions what happened to the crystal. He claims such an item is precious, and entire countries would raise questions if it disappeared. However, she claims it was destroyed upon the demon's death. Suddenly, a fat man barges in and confronts Fran, then declares she was a liar. However, Fran thinks he was an abomination uglier than the demon. Fran asks who the hell is he. He then sprays breath freshener as he gets ready to try and riz her up.
That's disgusting.
He introduces himself as August, lieutenant of the Alessa Knights Brigade. He mentions his unique skill allows him to see through lies told, which was a fatal mistake. Klimt asks if he is accusing her of lying, and he claims she lied when she said the crystal was destroyed. Master uses Identify and notices his skills, and stats are quite low for being in the Knights Brigade. He then notices his unique skill Essence of Falsehood, which allows him to see through a target's lies and makes the equipper's lies believable. Master realizes realizes that having this skill equipped, he can make people believe other people are lying, even when they are not. August requests the guildmaster allow the Knights Brigade to discipline her, but Klimt refuses and claims his knights are no match for an adventurer of her prowess. When he heard she defeated a greater demon single-handedly, he began trembling. He then demands to be handed over the corpse and the crystal, and all will be forgiven. However, Klimt claims the guild has first rights to its materials, and even if she does have the crystal, he forfeited any claims to it when he denied their requests for assistance. In response, August claims the info provided is vague, and he cannot risk the lives of his knights. That is what adventurers are for. During their squabbling, Fran offers goblin horns so he would shut up. However, he is disgusted and smacks it out of her hands. He demands to know what Klimt had been teaching her as Fran slowly picks them up. She requests permission to behead him at once, but the master denies her request since he is a noble. He suggests using the skill taker skill on him. They used it at the same time and stole the essence of falsehood and noble etiquette from the disgusting vermin.
Gotcha!
Fran then elegantly bows and claims she is 100 years old and asks if she was lying. August claims it was an easy task and begins digging for treasure. While staring into the eyes of a killer, he starts panicking and wondering what was going on. Fran asks if he can tell, then August runs away and retreats while taking a dump in his pants. Nell arrives and Fran greets her with joy. Klimt apologizes and informs her that August bought his way into his rank and most despise him, a disgusting and vile abomination. However, he is the son of the noble who oversees Alessa. Klimt warns her to be careful of the Didi nobles moving forward and thanks her again for her efforts. He instructs her to fill out her rank advancement papers. He requested her to be promoted to C, but the other guilds denied it and promoted her to D rank instead. Klimt notes he added a bonus to her reward payment as well. Fran then elegantly bows and thanks them both. When Fran retrieves her payment, the struggling alcoholic dwarf comes over to congratulate her and introduces himself as Elvint. All of the pathetic weaklings in the guild begin glazing her glizzy for taking the lead and taking down the greater abomination and asks her to have a drink with them. The master thought it was excessive, but he noticed Fran looked happy. He suggests buying everyone a round of the sacred booze since they all fought with her. She then announces to everyone the sacred booze is on her for the night. While the married couple happily watch. While August slowly and surely becomes a schizophrenic, the master tucks Fran to sleep. They set up camp next to a river and gather firewood to start cooking the curry he promised her. Fran gets prepared for battle. They get the ingredients out. Everything costs 100,000 gold coins, but it was worth it for the feast he was about to cook up for her. They made 3 different spice levels for her to try. Once the rice was ready, he presented his original mountain harvest curry, spice level medium. Fran takes a bite and is immediately shocked.
Hold up. Let him...
She demands to know what type of sorcery he uses on it. She looks over and says she was born and destined to discover curry. The master is happy that she is happy, then places the leftovers in the pocket dimension. Over the following weeks, they complete many quests for various different employers, and her motivation for every monster she killed was to put the creature into a new type of curry. After a day of hard work, the master prepares her a bowl of the other 2 curries to recuperate her energy. She tries the hot one first and thinks it tasted exotic. She tries the mild curry next and thinks it was delightful. He asks which one she liked best. However, she likes them all just the same. When they get back to Alessa, the guard out front asks if she knew Viscount Alsand. She repeats Discount Alsand, but the master informs her it was the noble at Klimt's office. She realizes it was the Lieutenant Weakling, which shocks him. He informs her that he was looking for her and tells her to be careful since he had pissed off the royal family and his father. The master thought it must have been the skill taker that caused this, but they thought he brought it upon himself. Suddenly, he realizes they were being followed and instructs Fran not to look back. They lead them away as they notice there are 2 assailants. Suddenly, an undead climbs up and approaches her. The master quickly realizes it was Lieutenant Weakling, but Fran asks him who he is. August asks if she had forgotten him, but she claims they had never met. He begins to forget, but he suddenly remembers and demands that she not lie using his own skill. However, Fran says she had no memory of meeting him, causing his brain to fry. He notices her sword and claims she had to be the little brat from before. Fran turns around in vile disgust, but August claims a lowly black cat has no right to look down on him. However, an assassin overheard she was a black cat and jumps onto the scene, claiming his kind is used to disposing of her kind. Fran begins trembling as Guran the Legion Slayer asks if he should feed her to the dogs or sell her as a slave. The master asks what was wrong, but Fran explains the blue cats are the mortal enemies of black cats. Fran unsheathes her blade and gets ready for a fight. The master thought he had never seen her so angry before and asked what their beef was. She explains that hundreds of years ago, blue cats deceived and stripped the black cats of all dignity and rights, and they hunted them down and sold them off to slave traders. As he approached, Fran was completely frozen from fear. Guran asked if she was afraid, then tried to strike her down from behind, but Fran blocked his attack. The master notices his sword was more powerful than the greater demons. Guran asked if she was going to fight, then kicked her away. Fran was reminded of her past when the blue cats hunted down her and her parents. He claims a black cat once fought back, and he took her daughter, chopped off her ears, limbs, and tail right in front of her. She lost it and died before he was even done with her. He then fed the mother to a pack of starving wolves, claiming the screams were delightful. As he stomps on her head, Fran is reminded of her own past slave owner. However, the master called out to her and reminded her of her dream of evolving as well as her strength that defeated a greater demon. She blocked his next attack, then demanded to know how many black cats he had killed, but he claimed he had lost count after 10. After Fran declared she could kill him without hesitation, she flash-stepped behind him and took his sword and arm away. She wanted retribution and then stabbed through the back of his knee. She began chopping off limb after limb as he screamed in agony. The master called out to her, but Fran told him she wanted to change the world. They thought it was their right to tyrannize the black cats. She wanted all her surviving black cat brothers and sisters to know they can evolve as well. If they let a vile creature like him live, he would go on killing the rest of them. She accepted her fate and knew one day she would have to kill as well, so she was determined to take his life. The master thought she was right. It was a completely different world, and he couldn't force his old world's morals on her. He began talking trash as Fran impaled him and took off his head. Meanwhile, the vile vermin started screaming in fear as the mighty blue cat had fallen. Fran requested to kill him. However, the guildmaster sent a water spirit requesting she show mercy. When she arrived, Klimt asked if she liked the spirit, but Fran thought it looked like a lowly slime, which offended him. He informed her August's father had put in a request for the guild to quietly arrest him and bring him in. However, he robbed his own father and took off. Fran then asked if she would be paid. Klimt mentioned he would be giving her an extra bonus for her help, which delighted her. On her way to retrieve her payment, Fran suddenly bumped into a pair of melon cannons. Amanda apologized. However, she noticed Fran looked quite familiar. Amanda lunged at her, claiming to be her mother, then embraced her into the heavenly pillows. Master asked if this busty baddie was her mother, but Fran tried to shove her off, claiming she was just some random old hag. Amanda apologized as she was mistaken, but requested she call her mommy anyway. She then tried to kiss her. The master told her to slip away, but Fran thought she was too strong like a transformer. Klimt told her to let go, and when she did, he introduced her as Amanda, Alessa's a rank adventurer. The master inspected her and realized she was an old hag, but her stats and assets were incredible.
Nice.
Amanda told her she heard stories about the black cat who cleared a dungeon by herself and commended her on her skills. She approached Klimt to give her report on the disturbance at the Great Wolf Plain, then apologized to Fran and said they would talk later.
No, you
However,
don't need to do
Fran
that.
told her to get
Goodbye.
lost. The following day, Fran encountered a wild baddie while doing her quest. Amanda diddled her way into the library next while Fran was asking about the Ulmut dungeon. Fran went to purchase cotton candy, but Amanda diddled her way there as well. She tried to diddle her way into the bedroom, and when she diddled her way into the bathhouse, Fran blasted her old decrepit face.
No.
Amanda continued to stalk her for weeks. Fran lost it and went to Nell to inform her a deranged lunatic was stalking her. She asked if she was going to do Diddy things, but Nell explained she was really strange, but she was a good person underneath the massive melons. When she was young, she opened and ran an orphanage for all of the peasant children. Therefore, God granted her the title Protector of Children, though it may be difficult to believe. Suddenly, Amanda teleported behind Nell and asked if she was bad-mouthing her. The men all glazed at her but were cautious about it since there was a rumor that a man tried to crack and got his head taken off.
Damn.
She sent a death glare and they all prostrated themselves. Fran entered Klimt's office next. He presented a bunch of mana crystals he collected from when he wasn't a cowardly wimp. They were all ranked D and above. He offered 2 in exchange for accepting a new quest. There was a dungeon close by, and he wanted her to participate in the expedition. However, Fran requested 10 crystals. Klimt was heartbroken, then offered 3, but Fran wasn't soft and requested 8. He thought that was absurd, then offered 4. Fran requested at least 6, but Klimt said 4 was his absolute highest. Fran was disgusted with his greed and walked off. Klimt finally folded and offered up 5, but that was the absolute maximum. Fran came back and asked why he wanted her to participate in the raid. Klimt explained the lowly peasants were upset at her sudden promotion, so he wanted to display her strength to them and put them in their place. Some had even claimed she diddled him into giving her the promotion. He thought that was ludicrous. As an incentive, if she accepted, he would give her permission to enter the Ulmut dungeon. When she accepted, the busty baddie blew up the door and declared she would accompany her. Fran arrived at the meeting point, and the massive milk jugs greeted her with joy. However, the master noticed all of the weaklings looking at them with malice. Cruz announces that 2 E-rank parties will be using this quest as a test to rank up to rank D, then introduced his pathetic crew, the Azure Guardians. The others were Rig and Izel. He then asked the next party to introduce themselves as well. Crad stood up and introduced his weak squad as the Dragon's Roar. Crad then sent a murder glare at Fran. Freon went next and introduced his pathetic team as the Eyes of the Forest. Amanda introduced herself next and shocked everyone. They were all surprised a rank A adventurer was accompanying them on a rank D quest. Fran went next and Crad was obviously jelly. He approaches her and claims she was the girl that diddled the guildmaster for a promotion, then pointed his spear in her face. However, Amanda appeared behind him and gripped his head with fierce force and demanded he apologize. Afterwards, he told Fran to crawl back to her mother. However, she said she was already dead, which shocked everyone. Once they set up camp, they assigned Fran as the first one on watch. Crad approaches and asks if she was really capable of keeping watch. She said she was. However, he pulls out his spear and demands that she prove it. He began to taunt her and her big sword as her cute ears twitched. She turned around with a murderous glare, claiming he would regret those words. The master asked if she was sure, but she was determined to put him in his place for insulting the master. Crad unleashed his dragon's roar as the wimps cheered him on. The master suggested putting up a barrier since it was their duty. She put up a wind and earth barrier, protecting the camp from monsters, which impressed the others. Crad charged in, but she deflected both attacks. She swiftly got behind him, disarmed his spear, then kicked him in the jaw. Fran picked up the master and declared that was the awesome power of her legendary sword. However, the master claims she won without using him. She then began to smack him around with the dull side of the blade. Amanda was impressed and requested a duel next. Fran agreed, but requested that she stop trying to commit Diddy acts if she won. However, her determination to win made Amanda excited, and she declared if she won, Fran would have to call her mommy. The others got ready to watch as Fran asked Master not to protect her. Amanda pulled out her wyvern whisker whip. She went for the first strike and slashed Fran's cheek, causing Fran to frantically dodge her ferocious slave whip. The sorry wimp woke up and looked over at Amanda, attacking Fran with a barrage of attacks. Fran charged in, but Amanda pulled the whip back, causing Fran to stop and dodge. When Fran got close, Amanda used the handle to push her back. Amanda was impressed with her and started channeling mana into her whip, then sent her serpent strike at Fran, but she barely dodged at the last second. It pierced straight through a pillar and came back for its target. Using her mana, Amanda began controlling its movement more fiercely. As Fran continued to dodge, Amanda claims it had been a while since anyone continuously dodged her attacks. The whip struck the ground and hurled shards of stone at Fran's arms. Everyone noticed Amanda was using more mana than before and was worried. The master told her she couldn't keep up. Fran boosted her dexterity with wind magic and accelerated forward. She used split mind to use dual casting. Amanda was having the time of her life, while Fran began chanting as she dashed forward toward her. Amanda sent another serpent strike and slashed Fran in the side. However, she kept pushing forward and used air burst to accelerate even faster, which amazed everyone present. Just as Fran's blade finally reached her, she used a windshield to blow her over. However, Fran responded with a level 10 fire spell and sprayed it all over her facials, causing a massive explosion.
Damn!
The others were speechless and thought it was absurd that she was able to take down a rank A adventurer. However, Amanda emerged from the flames, completely unscathed. Fran suddenly collapsed, and Amanda ran over and apologized for taking it too far, then quickly poured a healing potion over her. She says she wanted to take the attack, but her unique skill activates automatically, nullifying any attack that would deal devastating damage.
What?
The master thought that was unfair. Cruz ordered the peasants to put out the fire, while Crad thought they were both monsters. While Amanda comforts her, Master remembers Fran hated using split mind, but used it against Amanda to go all out. He notices Amanda's slave whip arts, wind magic, and unique skill made her invincible. Meanwhile, Fran dreamt about her mother patting her head and telling her she loved her. She told her to grow strong for the future of the Black Cats. When Fran woke up, Amanda told her Cruz's party was keeping watch. She had healed her wounds and told her not to worry. She told her since she was a child, it was okay to lean on adults when she needed to. Fran thought she was really strong and was sad about the L. However, Amanda complimented her on doing so well, then asked if she remembered their bet. Fran immediately got up. She really wanted to stay true to her word, but was struggling to call her mommy. Remembering her words about her dead mother, Amanda embraced her and told her it was okay. She knew she wouldn't trust her at the start, but she claims she would always be there for her. The master checked her words with the essence of falsehood and found no lies. After they entered the dungeon, the peasants began scouting, while Fran accompanied Amanda. She began reminiscing of when she was a novice adventurer. The spider's web dungeon was a hot spot. Everyone wanted to beat it, so it was always crowded with peasants. It sounded like a lot of fun. However, a lot of pathetic fools rushed in and lost their lives. Plenty of them were parents and left children behind. With nowhere to go, the orphan children flooded the streets of Alessa, prompting her to open up an orphanage. Suddenly, Cruz signals to everyone that there were monsters ahead, and they all got ready for battle. Trap spiders began dropping down and surrounding them. The dragon's roar began slaughtering them while having the time of their lives, then began cheering as if they took down a greater demon, while Amanda thought his riz was non-existent. The other parties began exterminating the monsters as well. The elf archer suddenly got immobilized for clapping, but was saved by the spirit sorcerer. He informs them they were weak to fire, but one of the poor peasants said their materials were valuable and suggested not using fire, prompting Cruz to call Fran an arsonist, which devastated her. Fran asks Amanda what the difference between arts, skills, and magic were. Amanda asks to hug her, but Fran declines. Arts are attacks strengthened by mana guided through the body using spirit manipulation. Amanda explains she uses whip arts, and hers was sword arts. Cruz ordered Izel to disarm the traps, while Amanda began explaining skills. Skills are divine crafts bestowed upon their souls by the world once enough training was done, and you possess the required proficiency in a certain field. Everyone began glazing Izel's doorknob as he finished disarming the traps. Master thought the trap sense skill would be useful when solo dungeon diving and Fran wanted to steal it. Magic is cast by using mana manipulation to control mana outside the body. There are 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. The advanced forms are land, sea, inferno, and storm. When you learn magic, you need to first see if you are compatible with the element. Fran asks how she learned wind magic, but Amanda thought it was a boring story. She had to bathe in a tornado and frolic through strong gales of wind while completely naked.
Yeah, boy.
Fran volunteered to try that as well. However, the master refused the degenerate request. She then explained compounding magic next, while the other parties engaged in battle. The elf used wood magic, which was a combination of water and earth magic. Homeless elves like Fryon and the Guildmaster are born with affinities for water and earth. Fran thought he looked ordinary, but he was actually quite skilled. There were 5 other compound elements: metal magic with earth and wind, sand magic with wind and earth, lightning magic with fire and wind, life magic with water and fire, ice magic with water and wind. Fran thought lightning magic sounded cool. Amanda praised her for having 3 affinities, which was extraordinary, and if she improved fire and wind, she could produce lightning like Chidori. It was unusual to have more than 1, but even rarer for more than 2. Master suddenly realizes he had been providing Fran with paid to win server admin abilities. They reached the 4th floor, and Fran shared a bowl of curry with Amanda for teaching her what the master couldn't. She asks what this disgusting vomit was. Fran declared it to be the king of all foods, as they both took a bite at the same time, while all of the broke peasants shared jerky and bread. Master thought Fran must have really trusted Amanda to share her curry with her. Amanda began explaining light and dark magic, but mentioned it was even rarer for humans to use than compounding magic. The master suggested keeping it a secret that they could use all 6. Fran asks if dark magic was only used by evildoers. However, Amanda explained a skill was a skill. She knew a shady necromancer that did sus things, but he wasn't an evil Diddy Island goer.
What?
Master thought if a shady stalker like her was calling someone shady, he must have been a diabolical ditty. Crad thought the expedition had been too easy and asked if it was enough for their exam. However, Cruz mentions it'll get harder from the 5th floor down. They explained there could be traps that teleport you and disarm all of your equipment, and the thought of it happening to Fran horrified the Master. Fran suddenly began begging the Master to learn lightning magic, but he denied the request. She begged him with her adorable cat eyes, and he folded. However, he said she wasn't allowed to use it until they got home. They spent some evolution points to learn level 10 wind magic and unlocked storm magic and lightning magic. They reached the 5th floor, and the combat got more intense. They were all struggling like pathetic wimps while Fran charged through, and Amanda cheered them on with a gooner rag. They were suddenly surrounded on the 6th and final floor. The men started dropping and claimed the antidotes weren't working. The Master inspects him and notices lethal poisoning. Fran used recovery magic and called it an antidote. He realizes they were trick spiders and stronger than the ones before. Cruz thought this shouldn't be happening in a conquered dungeon and wonders if they had evolved. He orders everyone to retreat back and requests aid from Amanda and Fran. Together, they cleared a path. Suddenly, the two idiots that got hit with confused poison pushed Fran into a teleportation trap. The Master told her to hold on. However, she teleported away without him. Izel looked at the map and mentioned they should be close by. Amanda picked up the Master and began searching the dungeon and was out for blood. When they got to the room, it was empty and they realized the location had been changed. Amanda mentions it was the work of a trickster spider, a monster capable of changing and recreating traps within a dungeon. The monster approaches, but Fran is shaken at the thought of the Master not being there. She realizes she couldn't use magic or any skills and couldn't fight. It set off multiple traps at once, blowing up our poor little Fran. Amanda explains it was an extreme irregularity. She wouldn't be surprised if they encountered its highest form of evolution. Cruz split the party into 2 separate teams, while Amanda set off on her own. She set him down and used noise cancellation. However, she realizes it was difficult to use in a dungeon as all she could hear were spiders. The Master began panicking, hoping Fran was okay. Meanwhile, Fran was struggling to evade and stay alive, and the rest of the groups were struggling to find a lead. The Master wondered what skills he could use, then noticed the summon minion skill. He realizes if he summoned a minion to search for Fran, Amanda would discover his intelligence. However, he would stop at nothing to save her life. He chose to summon an onyx wolf, which had the ability to detect any creature. Amanda recognizes it immediately and asks who summoned it. It suddenly activates dark magic and blasts the Master off the edge. Amanda notices it wasn't a dungeon spawn and then gets ready to dispose of it. However, the Master called out to her and asked her not to. She asks if he was Diddy, but the Master says he couldn't explain, but he was a friend of Fran's. He needed the wolf's skill to find her and asked her not to kill it. Amanda didn't understand and reluctantly agreed. Master realizes the wolf was affected by mana frenzy, which is when a minion is summoned using too much mana. The creature realizes the Master is a threat and is causing it pain. Amanda suggests giving it a name. When gods bestow power, they give out names that act as receivers for special powers. To imitate this, summoners would name monsters and spirits they summoned to strengthen the bond. The wolf got ready to lunge at him as he named him Urushi, the darkness wolf. The excess mana inside came under control as Urushi evolved into a demonic wolf. He sat in front like a good boy, then the Master told him to take a sniff to begin their mission. Meanwhile, Fran was enduring as much as she could, but she was at her limit. When she got hit with poison darts and called out to the Master, Urushi caught her scent and took off. After getting hit with poison, Fran notices her body beginning to fail. A crippling depression came over her, and she realized she was just as weak as before she met the Master, a nobody with no abilities or a name. She looks over at the bums and apologizes that she was powerless. However, she had a vision of the Master telling her not to give up no matter what, and that he was on the way. Her eyes lit up, and she went and pulled both of the useless peasants out. Fran realizes she still had her hands and legs as she began tearing the spiders apart. She smashed her head on the ground to shake off the fear, and remembered her parents and her goal, then stood up, determined to survive no matter what. Amanda notifies him there were traps up ahead. However, Urushi's unlimited riz allowed him to skip through. They reached a dead end, and the busty baddie asked them to step aside as she blasted the wall with a tornado lance. The The hall was blocked with webs, and the master volunteered to go ahead. The trickster spider grew impatient and attempted to strike Fran down as she continued to evade. The bums noticed she was leading it away from them, but Fran had reached her limit. However, she had no plans on giving up. Master prepared to launch himself through the cotton fields, then poured his remaining mana into cloaking himself in flames. Fran got ready to charge, fully prepared to die. Suddenly, Master burst through the wall, then penetrated the spider and blew out her back. However, it escaped. Afterward, he flew straight to Fran and asked if she was all right. The master uses greater heal on her and apologizes for leaving her alone. Fran was just happy he came to save her, then hugged him. He said he was still on fire, but that didn't matter to her. The master told her he was proud and she did great on her own. She held him closer as his words touched her heart. The busty baddie came running in, screaming for Fran. She lunged in and embraced her warmly, expressing how worried she was. When Fran noticed the ginormous puppy, Urushi sniffed her and licked her up. Master introduced her to her new fluffy buddy that helped find her, Urushi. Fran hugged and thanked him for saving her. After everything, Amanda began interrogating the master. However, she didn't want to upset Fran and realized she was being rude to ask them. She mentions they should only open up to trustworthy comrades, but Fran thought she was trustworthy, then asked the master if she could tell her the truth. The master was a bit jealous, but realized it would be good for her to have more people she could trust, then gave her permission. After Fran explained their story, Amanda's water faucet erupted with joy as she realized intelligent weapons did exist. She thought it was amazing that he could absorb skills from mana crystals and share them with little Fran. She picked him up like a WWE belt and declared he was the best sword ever. Amanda happily agrees. She asks if he would always be Fran's ally, and when he said yes, she poked him and said she was jealous. She then hugged Fran and was overjoyed she shared her secret with her while rubbing the melons all over Master's face.
Nice.
They suddenly noticed the two half-dead fools, then proceeded to heal them. Amanda asked if they remembered anything, but they only remembered Fran fighting alone. The master asked what was wrong. Amanda claims if they overheard their secret, she would have had to off them and blame the spiders. On the way back, Amanda carried one of the bums, while Urushi carried the baldy in his mouth. Fran notices an ominous aura as the trickster spider recovers from battle. Suddenly, a glowing white owl appeared before the group. Cruz's party had all teleported away from a trap, and they were out of potions. The other team had been captured and was being kept alive to lay eggs in. Suddenly, a boulder came crashing down, and Crad lost all hope. However, it was obliterated by Fran and Urushi. Fran asked for permission to use fire magic, and when it was granted, she exterminated them with level 10 fire magic. Amanda thought fire magic was dramatic and activated level 10 wind magic. The two of them single-handedly wiped out an army 2 whole parties couldn't handle. Absolutely pathetic. When the spirit Talua went to check on Freon, he thanked him for going to get help for them. The trickster spider makes an appearance, and Fran notices. The master wanted revenge and ordered her to take its mana crystal, but the minions busted a fat one and formed a Gunner shield around her. Fran dismantled the Gunner shield, then charged in with Urushi, and Master cloaked in flames, but the spiders started gathering around her. She tries to cut them down, but notices the trickster getting away. The Master then gave permission to use lightning magic. They turned into orbs of lightning, eradicated the spiders, and blasted the queen to smithereens. Amanda looked over and was delighted to see her getting stronger. However, the trickster countered her and sent her flying. Amanda saw and was devastated. She was suddenly reminded of 2 black cats from her orphanage, Frau Moore and Keenan. They wanted to become adventurers like her, but she couldn't find it in her heart to teach them how to fight. She thought if she did, they would have died in battle, and their lives would be even shorter. As Fran charges in for the mana crystal, Amanda begins activating advanced level 10 storm magic. She uses Wind Vortex and shoots it directly at the abomination, claiming she would protect Fran at all costs, then completely annihilates her off the face of the planet. Fran and Master were confused since they wanted its crystal, while everyone else was glazing her magic. The melon cannons ran over, overjoyed with happiness. However, Fran was emanating an ominous aura and said she wanted revenge. The Master told her they wanted the mana crystal, which left Amanda completely heartbroken. They reached the core room and discovered the mother lodes of all treasure. Cruz ordered everyone to carry as much back as possible and told them to keep their mouths shut about it. He then threatens Crad not to pocket anything as he was already penny pinching. Izel notices the core was still set to only spawn trap spiders and asks what they thought. Cruz asks Amanda if they should kill all of the stronger monsters, but she didn't want to deprive the dungeon of its resources and suggested reporting back to Klimt about it. Crad approaches Fran and apologizes for before. However, Fran gives him a devious smile and shoots a spider off of his head. Later that night, Fran asks Amanda if she knew any black cats that evolved, but she hadn't. She mentions 2 black cats she once knew that had the same goal. Fran asks if they achieved that goal, but she informs her none of them can. She tells Fran that she'll support her no matter what, but tells her not to strain herself. Master realizes Amanda truly cared for Fran and was glad. Fran returns with a C-rank familiar, and Klimt was astonished. He thanked her for completing the quest, then commended her for the duel with the busty baddie and for surviving the teleport trap as well as saving the party from certain doom. Klimt then gives her permission to enter the Ulmut dungeon and asks when she would be leaving Alessa. She says in a day or 2. Fran asks if he was happy she was leaving. Klimt smiles and says yes, but he says they'll miss her nonetheless. Fran thanks him for all he had done for her. Fran met with Nell and upgraded her class to an elite class called Battle Mage. She stops at Garrus's shop next to pick up her new armor he crafted from the monster materials they left him. He presented her with the Black Cat set, and the master was impressed. Garrus claims they were all named items, which made them have better stats and divine protection. They tell him they're headed for Ulmut next, and he tells them he was planning to set up shop there. Fran asks if he wanted to travel with them. Garrus asks if they were taking the sea route, and Master says he wanted to show Fran the ocean. He claims he couldn't swim since he was a disgusting dwarf, so he had to travel through the mountains. However, he tells them to find his shop when they get there. Meanwhile, Amanda visits an old friend and asks how his rundown business was doing. Rufus tells her a black cat with a giant sword came in just the other day. Amanda tells him that it was Fran. She reminded him of the 2 black cat orphans that were raised at her orphanage. Amanda agrees, then explains after leaving the orphanage. They came back once to tell her they were setting off to become adventurers. Years later, she had heard they died. She tried to track them down, but couldn't find them. She has been plagued with regret for years. As she walks out of his crummy store, she remembers Frau Muir calling her mom Anda. Seeing all of Fran's friends sending her off made the master happy. Fran told Amanda that when she comes back, she'll be stronger and she'll win the next duel. Amanda looked down, and Fran asks what was wrong. She tells her she'll be excited and waiting, then approaches the master and asks him to promise to keep her safe. She looks at Urushi and tells Fran she's glad she wasn't alone. When Fran hopped on, she turned around and said goodbye to Mom Anda. Amanda was touched, as memories of Frau Muir calling her Mom Anda every morning came flooding back. As Fran took off, Amanda remembers the time Frau Muir and Keenan came back to visit before setting off. They brought news of a baby they had named after themselves, Fran. A tear came out as she waved goodbye and told Keenan and Frau Muir the daughter they left behind was living a fulfilling and happy life. If you liked this video, comment below if you want Season 2 and watch this video next.